Chapter 1. The Last Meeting on 5th Street. The rain wasn't falling, it was lashing the alley. For Detective Giovanni Rossi, a man in his 60s, the lashing sound was just an extra blanket over the deadly silence. Giovanni stood under the dim glow of a street lamp, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his rain-worn trench coat, which was as old as his memories. His white hair was scattered in strands, but his brown eyes were sharp, devouring the scene in seconds. There are no fingerprints, Giovanni. The rain washed everything away in the first 10 minutes, said the young captain, Antonio, nervously holding an umbrella that barely sheltered him. Fingerprints are for the young, Antonio. We're looking for the prints that water can't wash away, Giovanni muttered, lighting a cigarette. Its white smoke mixed with the rainy fog and vanished. Briefcase the victim and the paper. The victim was lying on the wet asphalt in the narrow alley. He was Sergio Val, a wealthy businessman known for his suspicious real estate deals. He was wearing a dark, expensive suit. A single, quick stab to the chest. Professional work, Giovanni observed. But what caught his attention wasn't the wound, but what was clutched between Sergio's relaxed fingers, a small, carefully torn piece of white paper, so wet that the ink was beginning to bleed. Giovanni leaned down cautiously and pointed to the paper. What does it say? Antonio picked it up with a plastic glove and brought it closer to the light. Just one word, sir. Contract. Giovanni sighed. This wasn't a random act. He came here to die, and he carried the proof of his death with him. Giovanni didn't focus on the word as much as he focused on the tear. This paper wasn't torn here. It was taken from a larger document. The wet, torn paper is all that remains of a deadly agreement or a promise. Magnifying glass tilted left details in the rain. Giovanni looked around. The alley was blocked on one side and opened onto 5th Street on the other. No cameras, no witnesses. Logically, the killer and the victim were here for a good reason. Antonio, look for an umbrella, Giovanni commanded. An umbrella? Sir, the rain is washing everything away. True, but the rain leaves an impression on human behavior. The killer was close enough to touch him. Why didn't he seek shelter? After a minute of searching, one of the technicians found a small piece of cracked black plastic near our overturned trash can. It looked like a broken umbrella handle. There was a struggle, sir, or a failed attempt to escape, Antonio said. It wasn't a struggle, Giovanni corrected, throwing his cigarette on the ground and crushing it with his foot. It was a struggle not to sign. The killer came to tear up the final contract, but the victim clung to the evidence. Giovanni looked at the victim's hand, which was suspiciously clean despite the heavy rain. It was a hand untainted by mud, a hand that might have been holding something clean moments before his death. My first task, Antonio, is to find out who Sergio was blackmailing. The torn contract wasn't a partnership agreement, it was a contract of betrayal. Giovanni raised his eyes, coolly accepting the raindrops. The investigation had just begun, and he knew the real secret to this crime lay in the darkness behind closed doors, not in the cold water of this alley. Chapter 2. The Shadow in Sergio's Villa. Sun 9:00 a.m., a contrast in atmosphere. Detective Giovanni Rossi stood before the gate of Sergio's villa, hours after the wet Wednesday sunrise. The rain had stopped, but doubts were gathering like heavy clouds. The difference between the dark, tragic alley and this illuminated villa, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, was stark. He was greeted by Lena Fosco, Sergio's personal assistant. She was young, dressed in dark formal attire, her face bearing a polished expression of controlled grief. Sergio was a friend and a business partner, Alina said, her eyes quickly assessing Giovanni. I can't believe someone could hate him this much. Money, Miss Fosco, Giovanni said, walking past her toward the main office, usually breeds a hatred the size of this villa. Giovanni ignored her cold statements. In her eyes, he saw exhaustion, not from grief, but from caution. She was defending something. Card the search for blackmail files. In Sergio's office, everything was meticulously organised, save for the minor clutter on his desk, the kind the rain couldn't reach. Was Sergio afraid of anything? Giovanni asked. He wasn't afraid of anything. He controlled everything, Alina replied quickly. Giovanni ignored the answer and began examining the desk. He wasn't interested in financial documents. He was looking for contradiction, small details out of context. Giovanni ran his hand behind a massive bookshelf, where he felt a rough texture on the wall. He pushed the shelf aside. Behind it was a small steel door, a hidden safe. Alina's face paled slightly. I didn't know it existed. Everyone knows about bank vaults, Miss Fosco. Secrets are hidden at home, Giovanni said. The technicians opened the safe. It wasn't filled with cash or gold, but contained paper and digital files named after prominent public figures in the city, politicians, judges, and rival businessmen. Each file held conclusive evidence of corruption or financial betrayals. This isn't the work of a businessman, Antonio said, flipping through the files in shock. This is the work of a professional blackmailer. Sergio had a contract with everyone, Antonio, and the contract was fear, Giovanni commented. Shushing faced the first shadow, inheritance and betrayal. While Antonio was collecting the files, Giovanni pointed to a recent document in the safe, a will dated only 1 week ago. The will stated that Elena Fosco, the assistant, would inherit a large share of his company's stock, in addition to ownership of his summer villa. Are you sure you didn't know about the safe? Giovanni asked Elena directly, pointing to the will. Elena trembled slightly, but regained her composure. Sergio was generous, but he never told me. Maybe he wanted it to be a surprise. Deadly surprises aren't kept in safes, Miss Fosco. They're kept in minds, Giovanni said, staring into her eyes. He could smell the lie. Elena now had a massive motive to kill Sergio, ending the blackmail and securing the wealth. But Giovanni knew that a killer who executes a professional stab in a rainy alley doesn't leave such an obvious motive behind. Tell me about the last person Sergio met last night. Who was he seriously blackmailing recently? Giovanni asked, ignoring the will for now. Elena provided 3 prominent names from the blackmail files. 3 people who stood to lose everything if Sergio exposed their secrets. It's clear the Turn contract was an attempt to cancel an agreement, Giovanni concluded, and we need to find who is most ready to tear up their life to end Sergio's. We now move to Chapter 3, where Detective Giovanni Rossi begins to sift through the suspects and discovers that the puzzle isn't about who has a motive, but who has the most to lose. Chapter 3, Theories of the Black Umbrella. 3 o'clock, 11:30 a.m, the cold interrogation room. Giovanni sat in the cold interrogation room at the police station, staring at 3 photos hanging on the wall. Elena Fosco, the cold assistant, Senator Marcus, the influential politician, and Dr. Leni, Sergio's old partner. Giovanni placed his pen on the edge of the table, making a light sound that broke the room's silence. Antonio, what do you think? The strongest motive belongs to Miss Fosco, sir. She inherited a significant portion of his assets. It's the end of blackmail and the beginning of wealth, Antonio answered, turning a page in the investigation file. Giovanni shook his head slowly. Crimes of direct greed aren't executed with this elegance. The stab was quick and fatal, and the killer left no trace on the worst rainy night. Elena has the motive, but she doesn't have the skill, or, shall we say, the coldness. She's smart, but she's not a professional killer. Then Senator Marcus, Antonio wondered. Sergio's files almost destroyed his political life entirely. His loss isn't measured in money. A politician sends someone to do the dirty work. He doesn't leave his office at 2 in the morning to stab someone himself. That's too dangerous for his image, Giovanni said, his gaze settling on a photo of Dr. Leni, and Leni, a former partner, also being blackmailed. What makes him different? He's an insider. He knows the secrets, and he knows how to operate in the shadows. Most importantly, Antonio, I need to link them to the broken umbrella. Newman, the secret of the black plastic. Giovanni was obsessed with the small, cracked black plastic piece found in the alley. Antonio dismissed its importance, but Giovanni saw an entire story in it. What about the forensics report on the umbrella? Giovanni asked. An old, cheap model, sir, produced by an Asian factory that shut down 5 years ago. No fingerprints on it, Antonio replied disappointedly. An old, cheap model in the hand of a businessman wearing a €4,000 suit. Giovanni smiled bitterly. This isn't Sergio's umbrella. This is the killer's umbrella. And the killer wasn't a professional sent by the senator, but someone acting recklessly under immense pressure. Giovanni concluded the killer was close enough to Sergio to meet him in a secret alley, but not rich enough to carry an expensive umbrella. Check Dr. Leni, his house, his car. Did he have a recent falling out? Giovanni ordered, warning the threat in the hallway. Giovanni decided to leave the station for an informal field investigation. As he walked down the dimly lit hallway, a woman with short red hair, whom no one else seemed to notice, passed him. As she walked away, she whispered something he barely heard. Stay away from the rain, Rossi. Some contracts are signed in blood. Giovanni stopped abruptly. He turned, but the woman had already disappeared through a side door. This was no random threat. She used the word contract and mentioned his name. Someone was watching him, and someone was warning an old, experienced detective they knew wouldn't stop at gravel and blood. Giovanni returned to his office, his heart beating slowly and confidently. "The net is very tight if they're watching me here, Antonio." Key the missing puzzle piece. Giovanni regained his composure and opened the blackmail files again. He was trying to see what he missed the first time. He remembered a reference to a cloud backup copy of the files. "Antonio, did we check all of Sergio's electronic devices?" "Absolutely, sir. They're all secured with strong passwords. The tech experts are working on them." "Then the problem isn't the password," Giovanni said. "The problem is the key. If Sergio was blackmailing all these people, he surely placed a physical key that opens the backup copy away from the villa." Giovanni realized something. The killer didn't kill Sergio to end the blackmail because the safe files were found, but killed him to get the missing backup copy. Just then, the forensic technician called with a concerned tone, "Detective Rossi, we have a development regarding the victim. On his left hand, we found a very old wound, a cryptic tattoo in the shape of a symbol, hidden under his wristwatch. This symbol is the old logo of..." Giovanni stopped him, his face turning to absolute sternness. "Don't tell me." "The logo of the real estate group that Dr. Leonie and Sergio co-managed 10 years ago. Leonie wasn't an old partner. He was a partner in the original crime." The circle of suspicion had narrowed significantly. Dr. Leonie became the prime suspect in Detective Giovanni's eyes. Chapter 4. The third condition in the contract. Briefcase 1:45 p.m. Confronting the old partner. Giovanni didn't wait for the tech expert's report. He went directly to Dr. Leonie's office. Leonie's office was in an old, simple building, modest compared to Sergio's villa, but exuding quiet confidence. "Your old logo, Dr. Leonie," Giovanni said, placing a photo of Sergio's cryptic tattoo on the table. "The logo of the Arcadia Real Estate Group. You and Sergio." Leonie, who was wearing an expensive wool suit contrary to Giovanni's expectation of a cheap umbrella side. "The past. It's been over 10 years. We split when Sergio started heading toward dark areas." "And did you let him go easily? Or did he blackmail you too?" Giovanni asked directly. Leonie didn't answer, but pointed to the tattoo. "That symbol meant trust. Together, we built an unbreakable information network. Sergio used it to blackmail me personally for years. I wasn't the suspect you were looking for. I was the most pained victim." Giovanni wasn't convinced by the victim act. On the night of the crime, Sergio was holding a torn paper with the word contract on it. "Tell me about your relationship with any new contract Sergio was planning." Airplane, the cancelled return ticket. Giovanni used a second pressure point. Travel reports. Sergio cancelled a return flight ticket from Nevada a week ago, and he was planning an escape. Why? Because the contract was about to end. Sergio was planning a final settlement with his victims, collecting his money, and escaping with the backup copy of his files. Leonie's expression suddenly changed, revealing genuine concern that the wool suit couldn't hide. "The settlement," Leonie whispered. "The settlement meant he wouldn't blackmail us, but he would sell the files to a larger group. The blackmail files were just a bargaining chip to fetch a higher price for the backup copy." Giovanni realized the difference. The three suspects wanted something different. Elena wanted to end the blackmail and get the inheritance, obvious motive. Senator Marquez wanted to end the blackmail and protect his career, political motive. Leonie, his killing was linked to the missing backup copy, meaning he was the only one who knew Sergio wouldn't stop at killing, but would continue to destroy them by selling the information. "Where is the backup copy, Dr. Leonie?" Giovanni asked sharply. "I don't know," Leonie said. "But I know Sergio hid it somewhere no one would suspect, an old place from the Arcadia days." Gloves, the umbrella secret, and the third condition. Giovanni returned to the crime scene with Antonio. Fifth Street had returned to normal, but Giovanni now saw something he hadn't seen before. The torn contract wasn't a random paper, Giovanni said, staring into the alley. It was part of an old document, perhaps Sergio and Leonie's old partnership agreement. Tearing it was symbolic, tearing up the trust and the past. At that moment, a report came in from the forensic experts. They had analysed the cracked black plastic remnants of the umbrella handle and reached an unexpected finding. "Sir, this cheap umbrella didn't belong to Dr. Leonie, but we found in his old clinic in the poor neighbourhood a very similar type of plastic. He used it in his cheap medical equipment boxes," Antonio said. Giovanni's eyes glinted. Leonie was wearing expensive clothes now, but the broken umbrella harked back to his old, poor persona when he was Sergio's partner. Leonie wasn't an envoy, He was the killer, but his act wasn't premeditated in the usual sense. Leonie lied about being a regular victim. He's the killer because he knew everything about Sergio's plan. But there's a third, missing condition. Giovanni muttered, relying on his long experience. Leonie had paid everything. He had nothing left to lose, and that's why he became a killer. The third condition in the contract is the key to the backup copy, and it's the only thing Leonie took from Sergio's body on the rainy night. Suddenly, Giovanni remembered the words whispered by the red-haired woman in the last chapter, "Stay away from the rain, Rossi." Some contracts are signed in blood. Leonie knew Giovanni would find him. Now, Giovanni had to find the location of the backup copy before Leonie disappeared with it. The location, an old site from the Arcadia days. Chapter 5, After the Storm. Factory 700 p.m. The abandoned Arcadia warehouse. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a glistening grey city sky. Giovanni drove his old car to an abandoned industrial area where an old warehouse bearing the faded Arcadia logo was located. This was the place where Sergio and Leonie had built their fortune and their secret network. Giovanni called Antonio and ordered him to send backup, but he insisted on entering the warehouse alone. He knew this confrontation didn't require force, but insight. Giovanni found Dr. Leonie in the back room of the warehouse, sitting on an old wooden box, with a laptop in front of him connected to an old internet network. His eyes were red, bearing a mix of exhaustion and relief. "You are smart, Giovanni Rossi," Leonie said calmly. "Everyone was looking for gold in Sergio's villa, but you came to the trash we started from. The plastic umbrella was your key, a cheap umbrella that doesn't fit your current wealth. It was the umbrella of the old, poor partner who died 10 years ago," Giovanni said, his hand feeling the pistol under his coat. "You killed Sergio to get the backup copy. Broken heart, the third condition, the real contract." Leonie confessed to the crime, but clarified the real motive. "Yes, I killed him, not for the money or the files, but for the missing third condition in the contract," Leonie said. Leonie pointed to the laptop, which showed the backup data, but it hadn't fully uploaded yet. "The torn contract was the old partnership agreement, Giovanni. I tore it in front of Sergio to show that the relationship between us was completely over, but Sergio didn't die for the public blackmail." Leonie revealed that Sergio discovered that Leonie's daughter was about to receive an important international scholarship. The final condition Sergio placed on Leonie to complete the large sale and escape was the destruction of Leonie's daughter's future, perhaps by threatening her with old family files or exposing her. "I endured the economic blackmail, Giovanni, but this was the condition I couldn't sign. There was no escape. I had to kill him and retrieve the backup copy to protect her. This contract was signed with my blood to protect what is more important than my life." Leonie pointed to a dark corner. "The backup copy is here. I plan to upload it and then destroy everything. And now, you have to decide." Gloves, the final moment. Leonie was holding a metal object in his hand, and Giovanni wasn't sure if it was a key or a weapon. "Drop the object, Leonie, and surrender yourself. The police are on their way. You and Sergio put me in this alley, Giovanni. You with your blind adherence to justice, and he with his blackmail. I'm the killer, but he is the one who created the circumstances. The backup copy must die with me." Leonie began to move toward the laptop to cancel the upload and destroy the data. In that moment, Giovanni did what all detectives do. He gambled on psychological distraction. "Was the red-haired woman the one who warned me?" Giovanni suddenly asked. "Is she your daughter?" Leonie stopped suddenly. The expression on his face, which had been hard, softened for a moment in surprise and pain. In that short psychological gap, Giovanni, with his expertise, lunged at Leonie, not to shoot, but to knock the metal object from his hand. Leonie slid to the floor, while Giovanni leaned over the laptop. "The contract is over now, Doctor." "Leonie," Giovanni said in a low voice. Balance after the storm. Minutes later, the police arrived. The backup copy was secured. Giovanni didn't open it. He left it for the judiciary to decide its fate and the fate of dozens of influential figures. Leonie was led away. His eyes held less regret for the murder than fear for his daughter's fate. Giovanni stood outside the warehouse. The rain had truly stopped, but a light drizzle was still misting down from the sky. Giovanni lit his last cigarette. He had solved the mystery of a crime under the rain. He had proven that the torn contract wasn't about money, but about love and protection from blackmail. But Giovanni knew that contracts signed in blood don't end with the arrest of the killer. The city was still full of people signing new contracts in its shadows, and as Giovanni walked out of the darkness into the city's light, He knew that justice is not always fair, but it must be conscious.